Hey guys, Lorena Magana here with NewFilmmakers Los Angeles. Today, I'm talking to director Bill Savage about his new film, In Lieu of Flowers. Let's take a look at a clip from the film.
Wow.
Yeah. Good thing it comes in black, huh? I'm wildly overdressed, aren't I?
Come in.
Why don't you give our viewers a brief synopsis of your film?
In Lieu of Flowers is about two strangers who meet during a particularly rough time in both of their lives. They're both on the heels of pretty extreme heartbreak. For our female lead, Rachel, she lost her husband about 2 years ago, and our male lead, Eric, lost his girlfriend about 2 months ago. And they just kind of meet in this tough period of their lives, but ultimately it's really just about that relationship that you kind of have in between the great loves of your life that helps you get from a very, very difficult period to kind of moving on with your life.
How did you come up with the concept for your film?
I was going through, or I went through a rough time of intense heartbreak about 8 years ago now. And I just kind of started thinking about loss and about death in all its forms, and that sounds really bleak, but the real flip side of that was I also was thinking a lot about survival and about just about how people go through some pretty extreme things and somehow find a way to survive. And I think there was a lot of admiration on my part for people who do that. And then I just kind of came up with the idea for this story, which kind of examines loss in a lot of ways, and there's similarities and there are differences.
Was it a conscious decision to make it a very untraditional love story?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, it's a love story in a lot of ways. It's a love story, I think, in the way that a lot of love stories that I like are, which is to a degree it's unrequited. To a degree, it's sort of, or it's very complicated, and kind of to a degree, you are kind of left wondering whether these two people getting together is really what's most important, and just sort of how there are people that you can fall in love with. There are relationships you can have that are successful that are not necessarily your traditional grand sweeping love story. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was not a byproduct of it. You know, I think if I was not interested in the love story angle, I would have made them like 90 and 10 and they, you know, but it's like very much, it's sort of that dealing with still, when you're still dealing with heartbreak and kind of trying to navigate moving on, and how much more complicated that is and how unsure of your footing you are. While at the same time, these two people are a source of great insight to each other.
You said that it took you 7 years to make this film. Were you constantly doing rewrites during that time?
I mean, I was going back to the script for that whole period. I definitely didn't like write it in 2005 and be like, I got the script and I'm not touching a word. And you know, the way I describe it is it's really interesting because it's changed in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it hasn't changed at all. Sort of like a lot of details, you know, you're updating things that seem kind of dated or seem kind of, I don't know, I didn't like certain bits of dialogue anymore. I didn't like, or certain character situations change, but the bones of the story, the two leads and their trajectory, and really kind of the main supporting characters and what the film is about never changed. And that was sort of what was reassuring to me, where you're not like, oh, I need to go back and do a page one rewrite on this. But I mean, it was changed constantly. And once you get greenlit, you also start doing revisions based on logistics, where it's like, okay, well, you have this scene taking place, you know, in the top of the Eiffel Tower, and this scene like under the ocean. Can it just take place in like a diner? And it's like, oh yeah, I guess it could. And I guess that would be a lot easier to shoot. So you kind of do a lot of those changes in addition to just, you know, content related ones.
Was it a conscious choice to make the main character have an STD?
Yes, it was. And structurally speaking, it's funny, somebody mentioned this to me last night. That happens pretty much at the halfway point of the movie. And I think it's important with a movie like this that you have at least a few, not checkpoints, you just have a few flagship moments where you throw the audience a little bit for a loop. Because I mean, we have all seen the story of like two people are sad and they meet, and then, you know, and I wanted to fight against that a lot too, not a lot of moping and like feeling sorry for ourselves, which thank God the actors did a great job of playing against that stereotype. But in terms of plot, I didn't want, like, they just meet and then they hang out for an hour and then it ends. And you're like, okay, like, you know, I think you need to have a few moments that make the audience say, oh, okay, this is not the same movie that I think I've seen 500 times. And that was a real part of that. And I think it really, I mean, luckily it's not just like a zing, like, oh boy, like this surprise. It really, really, really factors into his journey, because it really factors into his perception of his now departed girlfriend and what their relationship was really like.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.